He thought it was just another day at sea, until a desperate cry echoed across the ocean. A lone German shepherd was paddling frantically in the middle of nowhere. But when the fisherman finally saw what was floating behind the dog, his heart stopped, and tears filled his eyes. The sun had barely risen, casting a golden shimmer over the endless expanse of the ocean. Waves lapped softly against the side of Henry's small fishing boat as he pushed away from the docks, ready for what he thought would be an ordinary day at sea. For years, the rhythm of the water had been his comfort. The quiet hum of the motor, the salty breeze, and the promise of solitude far from the noise of the town. Henry leaned back in his seat, scanning the calm horizon. The water sparkled under the early morning light, broken only by the occasional gliding seagull. He cast his line and let his thoughts drift with the current. There was a serenity in these moments, the kind of peace only the open sea could offer. Then, just as he was about to settle into the stillness, something unusual stirred his senses. A faint sound, so soft he thought he imagined it, carried over the water. He paused, his ears straining. It wasn't the cry of a gull or the splash of a fish. It was something else, a sound that seemed desperate. His heartbeat quickened as he turned his head toward the vast blue, searching for the source of the mysterious cry. Henry froze, gripping the edge of his boat as the faint sound reached his ears again. This time, it was clearer, a soft, trembling cry that seemed to echo across the open water. His heart thudded faster. "What on earth?" he murmured, scanning the horizon with squinted eyes. There, far from any shore, the ocean stretched endlessly, shimmering under the sun. He turned off the boat's motor to listen more carefully. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the gentle slap of waves against the hull. Then he heard it, again and closer this time. A high-pitched whine. His stomach dropped. That wasn't a bird. It wasn't the sea. It was a dog. Henry grabbed his binoculars and scanned the water. At first, he saw nothing but the endless blue. Then, just as he was about to lower them, movement caught his eye. A small head bobbing above the waves, ears pinned back, eyes wide with fear. A German shepherd, struggling to stay afloat, paddling with every ounce of strength it had left. A wave of shock and confusion washed over Henry. How had a dog ended up in the middle of the ocean? And more importantly, was he already too late to save it? Henry's hand shook as he started the boat and steered toward the struggling German shepherd. Every second felt like an eternity. The dog's head dipped below the surface, and his heart leapt into his throat. "Hang on, buddy. I'm coming," he shouted, his voice trembling against the endless sea breeze. As he approached, he could see the exhaustion in the dog's movements. Its paws sliced through the water weakly, barely keeping its head above the waves. Salt water sprayed into Henry's face as he leaned over the edge of the boat, extending his arm. "Come on, boy, just a little closer." The shepherd let out a faint whine, as if answering him, but the current was pulling it away. Henry didn't think twice. He grabbed a rope, looped it quickly, and tossed it near the dog. "Grab it, please," he muttered as if the dog could understand. By some miracle, the rope brushed against the shepherd's chest, and Henry slowly reeled him in. His arms burned, but he didn't care. When the dog finally reached the boat, Henry reached down, grabbing its wet fur, feeling the poor creature's body trembling violently. He pulled with all his strength, determined not to let go. With one final heave, Henry lifted the soaked German shepherd onto the deck. The dog collapsed instantly, shivering and coughing up salt water. Henry knelt beside it, gently stroking its wet fur. "You're safe now, boy," he whispered, but the dog's panicked eyes said otherwise. It kept whining and trying to stand, facing the open ocean. Confused, Henry followed the dog's gaze. His stomach twisted as he spotted something unusual floating in the distance, something that didn't belong to the rhythm of the waves. Squinting against the glare of the sun, he realized it wasn't debris. It was moving. The shepherd barked weakly, dragging itself toward the edge of the boat. Its desperate cries pierced Henry's chest. He grabbed his binoculars and nearly dropped them in shock. There, half submerged in the water, was a small life vest, and inside it, a tiny child's arm clung to the strap. Henry's heart froze. "Oh my God," he whispered, voice cracking. He instantly understood why the dog had been fighting the ocean with such determination. It wasn't just trying to survive, it was trying to save someone. Without hesitation, Henry started the motor again, determination surging through him as the shepherd barked, urging him toward the heartbreaking sight. Henry's hands trembled on the steering wheel as the boat cut through the waves, leaving a frothy trail behind. The German shepherd, still shaking, crawled to the edge of the deck, barking frantically as if guiding him. Every bark felt like a countdown. The sun was high, blazing down on the endless blue, but Henry's world had narrowed to one single goal, reaching that tiny life vest before it was too late. As he got closer, the horrifying details became clearer. The small figure bobbed weakly, arms moving in slow, desperate motions. Henry's chest tightened. "Hang on, kid. I'm coming," he shouted, his voice echoing across the ocean. The child's head lifted slightly at the sound, but their strength was fading fast. The shepherd let out a sharp howl, almost as if pleading with Henry to hurry. In that moment, adrenaline overpowered his fear. He cut the engine and dove into the cold water without a second thought. The shock stole his breath, but he pushed through, each stroke faster than the last. Reaching the child, Henry wrapped an arm around the tiny body and felt the limpness that sent terror through his heart. He turned. Henry kicked hard against the current, the weight of the child pulling at him like an anchor. The German shepherd barked furiously from the boat, running from one side to the other, as if urging Henry not to give up. Salt water splashed into his mouth, and his muscles screamed in exhaustion. But he pushed forward, refusing to let go. With a final surge, Henry reached the boat. He heaved the child onto the deck, gasping for breath. The shepherd immediately pressed its wet nose against the little one's cheek, whining and licking, trying to wake them. Henry's heart pounded in terror as he noticed the child's shallow breathing. "Come on, buddy, stay with me," he muttered, starting CPR with trembling hands. He pressed, breathed, and prayed. Seconds felt like hours until, finally, the child coughed, spitting out seawater. A weak cry followed, and relief flooded Henry's chest. The dog let out a long, mournful howl, then wagged its tail furiously, as if celebrating the miracle. Henry wrapped the shivering child in a blanket, holding them close, the enormity of what just happened sinking in. Tears blurred his vision, but in that moment, he felt only gratitude and awe for the faithful dog who refused to give up hope. As the boat sped back to shore, Henry held the trembling child close, while the German shepherd pressed against his leg, refusing to move away. The little one's soft whimpers mixed with the sound of waves, and Henry couldn't shake the question pounding in his mind. How did a dog and child end up alone in the middle of the ocean? When they reached the dock, paramedics rushed to take the child, but the shepherd wouldn't let go, standing guard with protective growls until Henry gently calmed it down. After the child was stabilized, authorities pieced together the heart-wrenching story. A small fishing boat carrying the boy, his parents, and their loyal dog had capsized after a sudden storm. The parents were swept away, leaving the dog to protect the only family it had left. The dog had swum tirelessly, barking for help, never leaving the boy's side, even when hope seemed lost. Henry felt his chest tighten as he watched the shepherd finally lay its head in the child's lap, eyes closing in relief. The rescue made headlines, but for Henry, the real story was simpler. A dog's love had defied the ocean, and in its loyalty, it had given a child a second chance at life.